This product is one of the most frustrating products I have ever bought. And one of the reasons for that is because it is such a great idea. I actually want this thing to exist. But the problem is, every time it fails, it will leave you in a terrible situation.
Dad, you're gonna go broke if you keep making those videos.
If you haven't seen one of these before, this is a series where I review a product that I paid full price for, have no sponsorship or bias towards, and have tested for a very long time. In other words, these make no money, so please subscribe so I can keep making these for you.
Okay, well today we're covering my most hated piece of gear that I've ever bought, as well as my favorite piece of gear that I actually use all the time, even when I'm not off-roading. Oh my gosh, this is heavy. Do you think they're gonna notice that I went and got a haircut and changed my clothes in the middle of shooting this? Okay, so what is this product? This is the ARB Portable Twin Air Compressor. It's a 12-volt system. So first of all, it comes in this briefcase. You're gonna see a lot of people that have reviewed this on YouTube, and you're gonna see that their case doesn't have a single scratch on it, and they tell you that it works great. So they've never used it long enough to start running into the problems. Yeah, see, this case is an expensive case with a gasket to keep water out, weatherproof, and then yet there's a hole right here. Every one I've seen reviewed, even the ones that have barely been used, the plug's fallen out already. Just random, weird side fact. The reason I think this product is such a great idea, this is their dual air compressor that usually runs somewhere in the neighborhood of around $600. So I'm gonna hold this up right here. There you go. And most people will be mounting this somewhere inside their car. A very popular place to mount this in Tundras, for example, is under the seat. So then you can just open your door and plug into your air right there and air up your tires. Works great. This is a tried and true tested air compressor that can air up a 37-inch tire from about 15 PSI to like 35 in about 1 minute and 41 seconds. So it is fantastic, it is fast, it works. The reason I bought this kit is you have the twin air compressor, and then you also have an air tank attached to it, which means you can actually run small air tools off of this. I love buying tools that can be used multiple ways, not just for overlanding. And in fact, the accessory that I'm gonna go over today that is my favorite accessory I've put on my truck. The reason it's my favorite, it's not the coolest thing that I have, but I use it all the time, even when I'm not off-roading and overlanding. The other reason this is such a great idea is, I don't know about you guys, but I find myself taking overlanders out on trips all the time that are new. They haven't been doing it very long. They're just barely getting started. And a lot of them don't have good air systems built into their vehicles yet. You guys know how this works. You stick 5 cars in a row on a skinny dirt road. It's not like if I have this installed in my car, they can all pull up next to me and air up. A lot of times you're strung out, you can't get next to each other. Use the jumper cables on people's batteries, and you can just go from car to car and air everybody's up. This sitting on the ground, this hooked to your battery. Using the supplied air hose, it comes with a supplied attachment for airing up your tires, although it doesn't have a gauge on it, so you have to bring one of those separately. And then it also comes with this handy dandy tool to be able to blow dust out of things like cleaning out your air filter in your car. This is clutch for those types of situations. And then it actually comes with a very detailed owner's manual that I have right here. We'll talk about the owner's manual in just a minute. So all in all, I looked at this and I said, I could buy this exact thing, save 300 bucks, mount it under my seat, or I could buy this and then I can use it and help support a lot of other vehicles. I'm gonna go with this. Essentially, the biggest failure point on this thing is it clogs. So the air compressor is in here, and then they use these air hoses, look like very nice, high quality products, all of these do, that run from the air compressor into one side to pressurize the tank, and it runs from the other side to the top here. I'll show you this. Runs up to the top, you plug in your air hose here. Well, between here and the air tank, the 2 different hoses, it will always get clogged. And what will happen is you'll either have your compressor kick on for a half a second and then shut off and you'll still have no air pressure, or you will turn the thing on and your air compressor won't even turn on, which is really confusing. You'll turn it on and it just will, you'll think that there's an electrical problem. You'll just keep toggling your switch and going, why won't this turn on? But you'll actually notice if you hold your hands over the button, it is backlit, and you'll realize, no, the button's on. It's getting electricity. Now, before a bunch of you comment in the comments and say, it's because of condensation. I know all about that. So every air compressor, I have a huge air compressor in my shop. Every compressor that you can see out there, even the cheap ones from your local Home Depot, is going to have a little drain on the bottom. When you compress air, I live in Idaho, one of the driest states in the United States. When you compress air, it still creates water. And the water pools up in the bottom of your tank, and you have to be able to have a way to empty that. Well, this doesn't have an empty, but if you read the actual directions that come with this, which I think very few people actually do. I've seen multiple reviews of this product where people complain about like, oh, it's really hard to fit everything inside of here and close it. If you read the directions, it actually tells you you need to wind the cable when you're putting this away. You need to wind it counterclockwise, and then it even tells you exactly where each of these go. Okay, so then in regards to the moisture buildup, condensation buildup inside of your tank, right inside the manual, at the very end of the manual, it actually has a section about draining moisture from the air tank, even though it doesn't have a drain valve like a normal air tank would have. So it actually tells you here, prolonged compressor use, moisture can accumulate in your air tank, and as a result, the air tank should be drained after approximately 10 to 20 hours of use. What they tell you is essentially you have to flip this up on its side the proper way that would drain the fluid in this tank on its side, where it will come out and it'll blow the air, and then you can blow it out of the hose. Some people will tell you, well, if it's clogging, it's because you aren't draining the air tank and it's rusting. Well, it's kind of funny because as you can see with this magnet, I'm not making this up, this is not steel. This is aluminum. However, these hoses, which actually end up being the lowest point inside the case, these hoses are rustable. And this is where the problem's happening. So there's two scenarios here that could be what's going on. One, mine clogged by the third time that I ever used it, which is really fast. There's no way it was 10 hours of use. One thing that you're gonna learn, you probably already know this, but a lot of air, like accessories, things that for air systems, a lot of them will come like this, where instead of having to use the white plumber's tape to seal the threads, it'll have this red stuff on it. I don't know if you can see that very well. I can do a close-up. And this red stuff, when you screw this in, it's supposed to seal so it's airtight. One thing I noticed is this red stuff, it really doesn't show up much on any of the threads of these. Even these didn't have it. But what I did notice is on the inside of the tank, if you look at the threads on the inside of the tank in here, you actually see a whole lot of this red stuff. Then when you screw these pieces, these fitments in, it actually cracks a lot of that stuff off and it pushes it inside your tank. So even after using the tank only 3 times, you're going to have a tiny bit of moisture inside of here. So you combine a tiny bit of moisture as well as a bunch of chunked up stuff like this. That right there probably could have been my first clog. So first time I had to take the whole system apart, clean all these out, blow them out. I was getting chunks of stuff, but I couldn't really tell because this stuff kind of comes out rust colored. I couldn't tell if it was rust or if it was just this stuff that originally caused the plug. But when this gets plugged and some moisture builds up inside of this hose, it appears that it's just sitting in there and rusting. Only after 10 to 20 hours of use, blowing it out, look, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna cut it over time. These are rusting way too fast. Every time this fails me on the road, I have to take the whole thing apart. Usually I take the tank off and then I disconnect this hose and then I carry an extra attachment in here and I just hardwire this straight onto here. So I bypass all the rest of it and see if I can get air. And then even then sometimes it doesn't work because sometimes this one is clogged. And that's what's going on with it right now. So I don't think that this is safe to rely on for air. I don't think it's a safe unit. If it hasn't clogged yet, it probably will. Now, couple disclaimers. One thing I've noticed in the pictures of this device, there's a lot of different pictures circulating around. There's other people that have reviewed it they've changed the design on this multiple times. You'll see tanks that are welded in the middle. You'll see tanks that are welded on each side. So the tank design has changed a couple times, but for the most part from the pictures, it looks the same. It doesn't look like it has a blow-off valve. You'll also notice where you plug in your air on a lot of them, there seems to be multiple different designs of how this piece looks. And I don't know if they changed something there that could have made a substantive difference. So you guys will have to tell me. You guys in the comments that are watching this that have owned one of these, I'm curious if you've used it for very long and run into any problems. So maybe this problem's already fixed and ARB just needs to like own up and get me a new one, right? Right now what it is it's an ARB Twin compressor that I paid $300 too much for, because ultimately what I have to do to make this reliable is I'm just going to take this compressor out of this case. I'm going to install it underneath my seat like everyone else does, and it's not going to be a mobile unit anymore, and it'll defeat the purpose of the tank and everything, but it'll work and I won't be stranded anymore. When I sent a message to tech support on this the very first time that it clogged, it was immediate. Remember how I said the first time it clogged, the switch wouldn't come on and nothing would come on. So the first time this happened, I actually thought that I was having an electrical failure of some kind. So I emailed them, and even though all I described was just like that the thing wasn't turning on, he immediately responded with, "Oh, it sounds like your air compressor's plugged." And I've worked in tech support way back when I was a teenager, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I mean, if that's where that guy's brain went based off the information that I gave him, and it went that quick, this has to be a failure that they're encountering all the time. I love ARB. I'm literally gonna buy an ARB bumper and put it on the front of my Troopy. I love, ARB owns Old Man Emu, and they make the BP51 shocks. I actually worked through, when those first came out, there were some failures about how they were being installed, and I actually worked with ARB to get the installation manual on them changed, and ARB was super responsive. They replaced all of the defective shocks that got broken from it being installed different and wrong. So they've been a great company. This is not to bash ARB, but this isn't safe. So if you have one of these, make sure you have a backup plan for air. Okay, so let's move on to my favorite accessory that I have on my truck. And the reason this is my favorite is, like I said, it's because I use it all the time. Even when I'm not off-roading, I will go and grab my truck and pull it around so we can use this shade awning. Don't laugh, just hear me out for a half second. When I first got into overlanding, I actually kind of had one of those secret, like, I'm so much tougher than all these people with shade awnings, because like I just handle it. You know, I can sit in the back of my truck, or I can use my truck as shade. And I almost just kind of looked at it as one of those accessories that was just like over the top. And you guys hear me talk about weight, shaving weight off my vehicle all the time. A lot of people would look at my truck and go, why don't you just get rid of the shade awning? So, I mean, first of all, make sure you get a good one that's made of like aluminum so it doesn't weigh a ton. Don't ever buy a shade awning that can't hold up to a storm. Just don't. Because the most ideal time to have a shade awning in the first place is literally during a storm. You're gonna have to cook outside still. You can't, a lot of our stoves, we can't run in concealed spaces. So having a shade awning to be able to put out that can withstand a downpour of rain, snow, and wind is kind of the whole purpose, one of the biggest purposes, right? I love it. In Idaho, I can back this thing like right up to the lake, open it up. I can even have the back of it. It's a 270 awning. I can even have the back of it overhang over the water where my 2-year-old plays. Early on, if I was a single guy, I'd honestly just use the shade awning and a swag. Like I would just open the shade awning, throw the swag up against the truck, and sleep in it. I wouldn't even use a rooftop tent at all, because I could save a lot of weight that way. I always thought of them as kind of a luxury item, and now I'm like, I'd rather have the shade awning than a rooftop tent, frankly, half the time. But this is only true if it's easy to set up, okay? So, like I said, I've had other ones that I've tested. I don't want to throw them under the bus. I had a Rhino Rack one. It's a much cheaper shade awning than this one. So, of course, it's not as well made. It has plastic parts. It's not all aluminum. You know what I mean? And for the price point, it was fine, but it didn't really hold up that well in storms and things like that. And it was also a mega hassle to put away. So I didn't really pull it out like casually because I was always dreading having to put it away. It's set up, it works great. Even in decent wind, this will still hold no problem. And then if it really gets windy and stormy and crazy, you have these very simple legs that fold down and you can secure it that way. Now, I never actually use these unless you actually are in a mega storm. And then you usually might even want to throw a stake down. I think I've used them maybe once ever. The rest of the time, this has an aluminum frame, has aluminum hinges, so it's plenty durable enough to handle a decent amount of flapping. This awning is an OVS, Overland Vehicle Systems. I am not sponsored by them, paid full price for this. There's multiple competitive products that are similar brands to these guys that are doing the all aluminum construction. I would do your research because I'm not saying this is a bad one, I love this thing, but there's a lot of competition and they're starting to innovate and do cool things. So definitely do your research and check them out. Don't get one that has anything that's plastic up here, and especially not plastic hinges, because those do exist and those break very easily. I have already broken on one of those. And this has these zippers, obviously, to where you can zip in walls, and then you have the ability to slant the wall farther out away from your truck, and it actually creates quite a big space in here. So we tend to use this to be able to camp underneath, play cards, have a good time. So those walls, you buy those separately. You want ones that have good durable zippers. So we use it quite a bit. I love this thing. It's one of my favorite accessories that I've ever owned. I will show you the timer really quick on how long it takes to put away. Oh, ARB, please don't hate me. But I just don't want anybody driving around with underinflated tires.